Hello and welcome to this very special edition of Beyond the Politics, a regular examination of the events that happen right here in the Quinte region and across the province and the people who work so hard behind the scenes to make it all happen. I'm your host, Paul Martin. Joining me in one of her first public appearances since becoming, of course, the new leader of the provincial NDP party and the leader of the official opposition just in advance of Budget Day here in Ontario is Marit Stiles. Marit, thank you so much for joining us from Toronto.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
So we'll get right into it. It's a busy week with it being budget week, and certainly so many things are happening because, of course, spring brings with it the end of the one fiscal year and the launching of a new one in April for many organizations. So let's talk about the visit you had. We first connected last week. When you came through the area, you were actually making a policy-oriented statement or comment in Kingston. So tell us a little bit about that.
Right. Well, I mean, I've been traveling all across the province for the last many months, actually, starting with my leadership race. And then since I've been actually officially become the leader of the official opposition NDP. And I've been to Kingston a couple times. And this latest time I was coming through to talk about healthcare in particular and the privatization of healthcare. And one of the issues we were talking about, I recall you and I discussed, I think maybe, was the privatization of an eye clinic. And what that was going to mean. And some of the questions that people I was meeting had about transparency and accountability and just access to information about deals like that. And that is a big focus for a lot of Ontarians, I know, as we approach this budget and also with this Ford Conservative government.
So you were also in Peterborough not that long ago to do an announcement on mental health. A lot of what we talked about during this segment has been on the health of workers, and certainly mental health is a big part of that. It's why they're leaving the industry. Healthcare, education, people have just had enough. COVID's been brutal, and mental health is something that a lot of people talk about. How much are we seeing on that provincially, and how much more do we need to see?
So, I mean, everywhere I go around this province, I mean, I was in Peterborough and everybody's like, no, wait, this is the worst situation. We have a mental health crisis here. It's the worst in the province. And then I go to another town and they say, no, this is the worst crisis in mental health. So let's just face it. We have a mental health epidemic in this. It's a crisis in this province. And we are not putting the services in place that people need and the support. So one of the things we've pushed for is to put mental health services under OHIP. So we need to make it part of your right, just like you go to see your family doctor, that you get to see get that kind of therapist, social worker, whatever support that, right now, if you have a work plan, benefits that cover that, great. It'll take you so far. But we need to start treating mental health care like healthcare and put it under OHIP. And that would go a long way. And then we need to actually start to put crisis urgent funding into some of our community mental health supports because they're desperately barely holding it together right now. And we really need that support now.
Okay. You mentioned back low voter turnout in June of 2022, record low turnout. In fact, 43% turnout, as I recall, which was a 14-point drop from the election 4 years before and the lowest total percentage vote in the history of the province of Ontario.
Yeah.
What can you say about how the campaign was and how disappointing was it to see that level of turnout when it's that important a job?
Well, very, very disappointing. And I will say also, it was a major reason why I decided to run for the leadership of the NDP and the official opposition, because that to me was just heartbreaking. As somebody who obviously takes this role very seriously, believes that government can do great things, I really believe the reason that most people didn't vote is because they've kind of given up. They've given up on government. They don't believe that it gets any better. And that's because I truly believe that they've been told over and over again by other parties, this is as good as it gets. Your expectations are too high, lower them. And I really want people to expect more. I want people to know and believe that we can do better than this. I think it's on us as political leaders and politicians, elected representatives. Every one of us, be ashamed by that result. Whatever it is, and I think I've told you what I think is going on, we need to address it. So that's my aim. And that's what I'm really hoping we can do in the next few years, is to give people something, put forward bold solutions, give people a reason to hope again, and motivate them to get out and actually vote in the next election.
It also begs a larger question of, and it's not just because of the change in government, but with lower voter turnout and without even taking things like COVID into effect. If you look back 5-6 years, we had a massive Liberal majority, and now the Liberal Party for 2 straight elections isn't even an official party anymore. They have too few members to qualify for that status. Are we in a different province? Has the province of Ontario fundamentally changed, in your opinion, to the way it was 5-10 years ago?
I think we have changed. Yeah, I really do. I really think we have. And I think some of that, I mean, obviously, like I believe that the Liberal Party and the Liberal government of the time let a lot of people down. I think we also have gone through some really difficult times, and people are quite divided. That's true too. But I also think the NDP is a different party than we were in the last 20 years. And I think we are in a much better position. I think people see us as a party that's ready to govern again. And I think that we speak for far more people than maybe we have at different times. I think that that's also just where people are at, right? People care about the issues that the NDP represents hope in, right? They care about climate change. They're really deeply concerned that if we don't take urgent climate action, that we're going to be living with the consequences of that forever. It's almost too late to turn back, right? And I think people feel that urgency. Things like housing and the affordability crisis, they've seen government after government, conservative and liberal, try the same sorts of things over and over again and not really get anywhere. And they know that, there was a time when, and a lot of it happened out of the NDP, but there was a time when we used to build housing. Government used to build housing, create housing in this province. So I think that we are also more attuned to, I think, and in sync with where a lot of people are at in this province. So it is a different moment. And it's a little more consistent with what we've seen in other provinces. In British Columbia, in most of the prairie provinces, it's the NDP and the Conservatives. And I think that is also where we've seen, really strong NDP governments emerge, very fiscally responsible governments that did bold things and brought about really great change in their provinces. So I think it bodes well for us.
Is there a mistrust of government? And I say this specifically, not in reference to you, but in terms of conflict of interest. This was a motion that you brought forward not that long ago, and it was more immediately connected to an issue with Mr. Ford with the stag and doe by one of his children over the summer, and then people paying money for tickets. And I mean, that's all very well known. But is there an integrity issue in terms of how people perceive government officials, and what can be done to combat that? For example, when you brought forward, what were you proposing to try to reinforce to people the integrity of their elected officials?
Yeah, I think that some of the legislation, the rules that govern elected officials have been weakened in ways that have allowed giant leaps. So, for example, it's not enough that there's I think, and I think most people out there would say, it's not enough that there's a conflict of interest. Is there an appearance of a conflict of interest? And that, I think, kind of it's common sense. But we've seen that the legislation, the rules that we all have to abide by have really been weakened. They're not strong enough. Even the integrity commissioner for the province has said repeatedly, look, guys, I don't have the tools to enforce things the way you'd like me to as Ontarians. So we need to address that. We need to toughen up the legislation. We need to update it. But I think there's also just a general shift that's happened. And it didn't just happen under this government, but I've seen over the years us get back to a place where there's sort of an expectation that if you donate enough, if you are friends with the right people, things are going to go your way. Government's going to act in your best interest. It's who you know and how much you pay. And that is a kind of politics that I find just despicable. It is for me, and I don't know, I come from a province where, like in lots of provinces across this country, that was kind of how politics was done for a long time. Pork barrel politics and, cash for access. And I had hoped that we were beyond that. And I think a lot of Ontarians, especially at a time when you're really struggling, to see that kind of thing play out where people who happen to know people get plum appointments. And even the premier today said, I really just like to appoint people who share my values. Well, you know what? How about appointing people who actually have experience, who know how to do the job, who can bring something to that, not just the fact that they sat with you at that reception or donated to your party. That's not the kind of government I want as an Ontarian, and I think most people are really fed up with that. So I do think we are in a different moment now, and I think things have gotten worse, and we really need to correct ourselves a little bit.
So what can be done? It'd be about a half a minute before the break, so quickly. What do you think can be done to restore people's faith in the integrity of government, and how important is it to do that to try to stimulate more people to go out and vote in the next election?
Well, first of all, the current government could, come clean on some of these issues, like on the paving over of the Greenbelt. Just say, you know what? Yep, you're right. Looks bad. Some people that are friends with us are making millions of dollars. We're going to repeal that legislation. We're going to talk to people. We're going to listen. That would help. Otherwise, we need to also toughen up some of the legislation, like the Members Integrity Act, so that there aren't these giant gaping loopholes and people can have more confidence in their elected officials.
So, just over 2 minutes left. We just celebrated International Women's Day not that long ago. Do you see yourself as a role model? And how important is it for people at your level to really speak to young women, to tell them that it's possible to achieve that level of success and that level of input to how the province runs on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, I hope that I am. I can inspire some young women out there. I hope they know that it's never too late to also get interested and engaged in politics. And I always, when I meet young women in particular, I'm always sure to make sure I ask them, hey, have you ever thought about running? Because oftentimes they may never get asked. They may never have considered it, and everybody should.
Talk about interests. So on a personal level, you spend most of your time obviously wearing your multiple hats. But outside of that, are the things that you're going to be watching? Are you going to be cheering for a particular hockey team or sports team as it comes up to playoff season? What does Marit Stiles do for fun?
Well, I love my dogs, like walking my dogs, like traveling, love swimming, a lake. In the summer, I will be in the lake the whole time. Love to read. But yeah, that's a lot of what I do. And I must say, I'm also a person who really loves to catch some good local theater, local music. I like to go out. I like to hang out with my friends.
Are you enjoying that more now? I mean, we haven't even really talked about COVID during the course of the whole show, but it's still very much an issue. But it seems like people are getting out more. Are you also looking forward to getting out more?
Oh yeah, I love it. It's so great to get out with people again. I mean, I think we were all missing it so much, and it's wonderful to see people coming out of that. And I think we've learned a lot again about how we can do these things safely, what we need to do when we're facing future outbreaks. And hopefully we'll just keep investing in things like public health so that we can avoid some of these things in the future too.
Okay, about 30 seconds left. What closing message would you give to the people of Ontario on behalf of the Ontario NDP Party?
Demand better, dream bigger. Like, we could do so much better in this province, and we need an Ontario that's actually working for everyone, not just a few wealthy, connected insiders.
Well, thank you so much, Marit Stiles. We'll be looking forward to seeing your work as you respond to the Ontario budget that's been coming out for this week. And thank you for taking the time to tell us about you, the party, and the future of the province. This has been a very special edition of Beyond the Politics.